I walked into the theater expecting a historical drama, something quiet and respectful. But Hamnet turned out to be something far more intimate and emotionally demanding than I was prepared for. This isn't a film that tries to impress you with spectacle or grand declarations. It moves slowly, deliberately, almost as if it's asking you to breathe with it. From the very first moments, there's a sense that this story isn't really about Shakespeare the legend, but about a family carrying a grief so heavy it reshapes every part of their lives. Watching it in a theater, surrounded by silence, made the experience feel deeply personal, almost intrusive, like witnessing something private that wasn't meant to be seen. Jessie Buckley's performance as Agnes is the emotional spine of the film. She doesn't play grief loudly or theatrically. Instead, she carries it in her posture, her eyes, and in the way she seems to withdraw from the world, piece by piece. There's something haunting about how she exists on screen, half present, half lost, somewhere beyond the frame. Her connection to nature, to herbs, to superstition, is portrayed in a way that never feels mystical for the sake of fantasy. It feels grounded, like a coping mechanism, a way to make sense of a world that keeps taking things away from her. Sitting in the theater, I found myself watching her more than listening to dialogue, because her silences say more than most lines ever could. Paul Mescal's Shakespeare is equally restrained, and that restraint might frustrate some viewers expecting a more dramatic portrayal. But for me, it worked. His William feels emotionally blocked, a man who processes pain by turning it into work, by leaving, by writing rather than speaking. There's a quiet tension between him and Agnes that grows heavier after Hamnet's death, and the film never spells it out in obvious terms. You feel it in the physical distance between them, in the way conversations trail off, in the sense that neither knows how to reach the other anymore. Watching this dynamic unfold felt uncomfortably real, especially in how grief isolates people even when they're standing in the same room. The pacing of Hamnet is slow, and this is where the film will test some viewers' patience. There are long stretches where very little seems to happen in a conventional sense. Scenes linger, moments repeat. Time feels elastic. In a theater, this can either pull you deeper into the experience or push you away entirely. This is not a film you casually watch. It demands your attention and your emotional availability. And if you're not in the right mindset, it might feel exhausting rather than moving. What impressed me most was how the film visualizes grief without turning it into melodrama. The imagery is subtle but powerful. The forest, the cave, the hawk, the stage behind the scrim during Hamnet's deathbed vision. All of it feels symbolic without becoming pretentious. There's a recurring sense that life and art are bleeding into each other, that the lines between reality and imagination are intentionally blurred. When Shakespeare later works on Hamlet, you don't see it as a creative triumph, but as a painful excavation of memory. The play becomes a way to speak to a son he never got to say goodbye to properly. The scene at the Globe Theatre is, without exaggeration, one of the most emotionally effective moments I've experienced in a theater recently. Agnes watching Hamlet unfold, initially feeling betrayed, then slowly realizing that this play is a love letter to her lost child, hit with a quiet force that left the audience completely still. When she reaches out toward the actor during Hamlet's death, and the audience follows, it creates a shared moment of collective grief that feels almost ritualistic. It's one of those rare scenes where you're aware of other people breathing, shifting, holding back tears, and that shared response amplifies the impact. That said, Hamnet isn't flawless. There are moments where the symbolism feels a little too carefully arranged, where you can sense the film's intention rather than simply experiencing it. Some supporting characters feel more like emotional functions than fully realized people, existing mainly to push Agnes or William towards certain realizations. The film's refusal to provide narrative relief can also feel punishing. There's very little warmth, very little lightness. And while that's true to the subject matter, it makes the experience heavy from beginning to end. By the time the film ended, I didn't feel uplifted or cathartic in a traditional sense. Instead, I felt quieter, drained, thoughtful. Hamnet isn't interested in comforting you. It wants you to sit with loss, to understand how it reshapes love, memory, and creativity. It's the kind of film that lingers long after you leave the theater, not because of a single dramatic moment, but because of the cumulative weight of everything it shows and everything it withholds. Walking out, I felt like I'd witnessed something honest, something fragile, and something that doesn't easily translate into simple praise or criticism. Watching Hamnet unfold further, I found myself completely immersed in the emotional landscape of Shakespeare's family. The filmmakers craft an intimate portrait of Agnes and William's daily life, making every moment, whether small or monumental, feel deeply personal. The tension between Agnes' intuitive wisdom and William's restless ambition becomes increasingly palpable. Jessie Buckley delivers a remarkable performance, conveying a blend of maternal strength, quiet anguish, and understated hope that anchors the story. Her expressions communicate as much as her dialogue, allowing the audience to feel the internal conflict that defines her character. Paul Mescal complements her presence with a restrained yet magnetic portrayal of Shakespeare, portraying a man torn between creative devotion and family responsibility. There is a profound attention to detail in how the filmmakers depict the household. The sounds of the village, and the textures of the forest where Agnes spends her contemplative hours. Every setting, from the dimly lit interior of their home to the open fields surrounding Stratford, feels carefully constructed to enhance the narrative. The cinematography provides a rhythm that mirrors the characters' internal states, with long lingering shots that invite reflection and shorter, abrupt cuts that heighten moments of tension or grief. The relationship between Agnes and William develops with an authenticity that is rare in period dramas, portraying love and partnership as a combination of intellectual and emotional intimacy, vulnerability, and occasional miscommunication. These exchanges are layered with unspoken emotion, and the audience is left to infer the depth of feeling in glances, gestures, and pauses. The film's sound design, subtle yet effective, accentuates these emotional beats. The rustle of leaves, the faint clatter of distant tools, or the hushed murmurs within the house, enhance the realism of the world, while also reflecting the characters' inner turmoil. This attention to auditory detail draws viewers into a space that feels simultaneously historical and immediate. The portrayal of the children, particularly Hamnet and Judith, provides an emotional core that resonates strongly. Their innocence, curiosity, and budding personalities are rendered with remarkable nuance. Jacoby Jupe embodies Hamnet's sensitive, introspective nature, showing the quiet intelligence and vulnerability of a child growing up in a household marked by both love and tension. Olivia Lyne's portrayal of Judith captures the sibling bond and contrasts in temperament with Hamnet, adding layers to the family dynamic. The twins' interactions with their parents, particularly Agnes, reveal the subtle ways in which grief, expectation, and love interweave. Agnes's awareness of their emotional states and her guidance in moments of fear or play highlight the profound maternal presence that shapes the household. These depictions extend beyond simple familial interactions and touch on universal themes of parenthood, childhood innocence, and the ways in which family histories influence personal growth. Scenes where the children engage with the natural world, whether observing animals, exploring the forest, or participating in small domestic tasks, evoke a sense of wonder and connection to the rhythms of life. The film's careful pacing allows these moments to breathe, letting the audience appreciate the richness of everyday life, even as tension builds elsewhere. A particularly striking aspect is how the narrative intertwines the family's personal struggles with the broader historical and societal context. The threat of plague, the social expectations of marriage, and the pressures of maintaining family honor are all present in subtle ways, shaping decisions and interactions. William's periodic absences, driven by professional obligations and creative endeavors, underscore the tension between individual ambition and familial responsibility. These absences are felt profoundly by Agnes, whose steadfastness provides the emotional counterpoint. The screenplay, co-written by Chloe Zhao and Maggie O'Farrell, balances these elements with precision, avoiding melodrama while maintaining dramatic tension. Each scene seems deliberate, each line of dialogue carefully considered, conveying information about character, motivation, and circumstance without resorting to exposition. Moments of grief, particularly surrounding Hamnet's illness, are handled with extraordinary sensitivity. The filmmakers do not rely on sensationalism or overt emotional cues. Instead, the camera lingers on subtle gestures, expressions, and pauses that communicate the weight of loss. These sequences are devastating, yet dignified, allowing the audience to feel the character's sorrow and empathy in a deeply human way. The film also employs visual symbolism and metaphor in ways that enrich the narrative. The recurring imagery of the hawk, for instance, serves as both a literal and figurative representation of freedom, protection, and spiritual presence. Agnes's relationship with nature, her knowledge of herbal remedies, and the mystical elements surrounding her lineage are woven seamlessly into the storyline. These elements are neither didactic nor distracting. They enhance the thematic resonance and emotional texture of the story. The interplay between light and shadow, particularly in sequences set during twilight or within the forest, reinforces the themes of life, death, and the passage of time. Costuming and set design further contribute to the authenticity and visual storytelling. Agnes' attire evolves with her experiences, reflecting her social and emotional journey, while William's clothing and demeanor subtly indicate his shifting priorities and the tension between his domestic and professional spheres. Every prop, from manuscripts to household tools, is utilized meaningfully, emphasizing the period's setting, while also reflecting character traits and relationships. Additionally, the film's pacing allows viewers to experience a gradual buildup of tension and emotional resonance. The narrative does not rush. It takes the time to explore characters' internal landscapes, their interactions with one another, and the environment in which they live. The decision to depict key events such as births, illnesses, and family interactions in real time, with attention to gesture, expression, and atmosphere, enhances the immersive quality. There is a meditative quality to the storytelling that encourages reflection, empathy, and emotional engagement. Scenes depicting Shakespeare's creative work, particularly in connection to his family, are infused with reverence and a subtle exploration of the interplay between personal experience and artistic expression. The depiction of Hamlet as a play within the story allows for layered commentary on grief, remembrance, and the power of storytelling, as both catharsis and tribute. The audience is invited to consider how personal tragedy shapes creative expression, and how art serves as a vessel for memory, legacy, and emotional truth. By presenting the family's joys and sorrows in such an intimate and nuanced manner, the film succeeds in evoking a spectrum of emotions. Laughter and tenderness coexist with anxiety, grief, and anticipation, reflecting the complexity of human experience. The cinematography, performances, and screenplay converge to create a deeply affecting and immersive experience that resonates beyond the historical period depicted. The attention to detail, subtlety of emotion, and thematic richness invite repeated viewings and sustained reflection. Each character's motivations and struggles are rendered with depth and complexity, encouraging the audience to consider questions of legacy, loss, parental love, and the interplay between personal life and artistic ambition. Overall, the narrative, visual, and performative elements of Hamnet in this segment elevate it beyond a simple historical drama into a profound meditation on family, creativity, and mortality. As the narrative deepens, the film explores the profound psychological impact of grief and loss on the Shakespeare family, particularly after Hamnet's illness and death. The portrayal of mourning in the household is unflinchingly realistic, showing not only the immediate sorrow, but also the lingering shadows it casts on each family member. Jessie Buckley's Agnes conveys a mixture of heartbreak and resilience, embodying the physical and emotional toll of losing a child while maintaining the routines and responsibilities of family life. Her expressions, often subtle and unspoken, communicate despair, love, and determination simultaneously. His frustration, guilt, and sorrow are palpable, particularly in quiet scenes where he observes the void left by Hamnet's absence, or reflects on the impermanence of life. These sequences are anchored in realism, capturing the weight of loss without relying on overt dramatization or melodramatic cues. The film uses visual language to underscore the emotional states of the characters. Lighting, framing, and color palettes shift according to the mood, reflecting both the internal landscape and the external environment. Shadows grow longer, and rooms appear dimmer during moments of grief, while the vibrant greenery of the forest and garden reflects instances of hope or fleeting happiness. The forest, a recurring setting, serves as a sanctuary for Agnes and the children, a space where imagination, memory, and reflection converge. Scenes depicting Agnes tending to her herbal remedies, speaking to the natural world, or recalling mystical teachings from her mother enrich the narrative, suggesting a continuity of life and wisdom despite tragedy. These moments are interspersed with the family's domestic life, from shared meals to small household rituals, highlighting the resilience of everyday routines even in the presence of overwhelming sorrow. The camera's patient observation of gestures, glances, and physical proximity conveys the emotional interplay between characters, emphasizing relational dynamics without relying on dialogue. Hamnet's death is depicted with profound sensitivity. The filmmakers avoid sensationalism or explicit dramatization, choosing instead to focus on intimate, human moments. His final illness and the subsequent mourning are rendered through carefully constructed visual cues and emotional performances that allow the audience to experience grief alongside the characters. Olivia Lyne's Judith exhibits a mixture of confusion, fear, and empathy, reflecting the child's attempt to comprehend loss. Agnes' maternal guidance, combined with her vulnerability, provides a powerful anchor for these scenes. The attention to detail in depicting the rituals surrounding death, the preparation of the body, the small gestures of farewell, the family's silent expressions of sorrow imbues the narrative with dignity and weight. These sequences emphasize the universality of loss while also grounding it in the specific historical and cultural context of the Elizabethan era. Parallel to the family drama, the film delves into Shakespeare's creative process and the ways in which personal tragedy informs artistic expression. Scenes depicting him at work on his plays, particularly Hamlet, are layered with meaning, highlighting the intersection of life, grief, and art. The dramatization of Hamlet within the narrative serves as both tribute and exploration, connecting the story of loss with the broader themes of mortality, memory, and emotional resonance. William's interactions with his actors, rehearsals, and reflections on dialogue reveal a meticulous attention to craft, as well as the tension between personal loss and professional obligation. These sequences balance historical authenticity with emotional depth, illustrating how artistic creation can serve as both a coping mechanism and a method of honoring those who have passed. The film refrains from overt exposition, relying instead on visual storytelling, performance, and atmosphere to communicate these connections. One of the most compelling elements of this segment is the nuanced depiction of family dynamics beyond immediate grief. The extended family, including Agnes's brother Bartholomew and her stepmother Joan, adds layers of interpersonal tension, societal expectation, and generational influence. Bartholomew's pragmatic approach contrasts with Agnes' intuitive perspective, creating subtle conflicts and moments of negotiation. Joan's skepticism and social pressures underscore the external forces that shape family decisions, including marriage, child-rearing, and engagement with the broader community. These characters are portrayed with sufficient complexity to avoid caricature, demonstrating motivations, loyalties, and vulnerabilities that enrich the central narrative. The film's commitment to realistic characterization ensures that the story remains anchored in human experience rather than veering into abstract moral lessons. Sound design and music play a crucial role in this film. The score, understated yet emotionally resonant, punctuates scenes of reflection, grief, and domestic life without overwhelming the narrative. Ambient sounds, rustling leaves, distant livestock, the creak of doors enhance the sense of presence and place, reinforcing the Elizabethan setting, while simultaneously reflecting the characters' internal states. Silence is used strategically, creating moments of stillness that magnify the impact of dialogue, gesture, and visual symbolism. For example, sequences depicting Agnes alone with her children or walking in the forest convey contemplation, sorrow, or quiet resolve, emphasizing the profound weight of personal and familial experience. These auditory and visual choices elevate the film beyond conventional historical drama, producing an immersive, emotionally textured experience. Another striking element is the film's treatment of the passage of time. Childhood, illness, and maturation are depicted with care, allowing the audience to witness the progression of relationships and the accumulation of emotional history. The twins' development, from playful innocence to a deeper awareness of mortality and familial responsibility, is rendered with subtle attention to physicality, expression, and behavior. Agnes' evolution as a mother and William's growth as a father and artist are similarly nuanced, revealing the impact of experience, grief, and circumstance on their identities. This temporal awareness is reinforced by costume design, setting and careful transitions that signal changes in season, age, and circumstance without relying on overt narrative cues. The effect is a seamless, continuous sense of lived experience, allowing viewers to inhabit the world of the Shakespeare household with emotional authenticity. The depiction of Elizabethan society, while largely in the background, adds texture and context. Village life, religious practice, and social norms subtly influence character behavior and plot development. The filmmakers avoid heavy-handed historical exposition, instead allowing these elements to emerge organically through interactions, environment, and visual detail. For example, Agnes's knowledge of herbal remedies and the suspicion surrounding her mother's mystical practices illuminate societal attitudes toward women, knowledge, and power. Similarly, interactions with neighbors, the local priest, and visiting actors reflect both communal cohesion and social tension. These details enrich the story without detracting from its emotional core, grounding the personal tragedy within a larger, believable historical landscape. The actors' portrayals, the carefully considered cinematography, and the sensitive score converge to create a narrative experience that is both intellectually engaging and emotionally affecting. Viewers are invited to contemplate the nature of grief, the impact of loss on creativity, and the enduring strength of familial bonds. The film's pacing, attention to detail, and layered characterizations allow these themes to unfold naturally, producing a deeply immersive, reflective, and compelling cinematic experience. The story of Hamnet deepens as the audience is drawn further into the emotional fabric of William Shakespeare and Agnes Hathaway's family life. The film's depiction of grief is both intimate and unsettling, as it carefully portrays the quiet devastations that accompany the loss of a child. Agnes, played with subtle brilliance by Jessie Buckley, is a character of layered complexity. Her outward calm belies the torrent of sorrow and guilt she carries. The filmmakers maintain a measured pacing, allowing viewers to feel the slow accumulation of tension, grief, and reflection, rather than rushing the emotional beats. The sequences depicting the children, particularly Hamnet and Judith, are handled with extraordinary care. Noah Jupe and Olivia Lyons bring a gentle authenticity to their roles, capturing both the innocence of childhood and the unspoken awareness of mortality that hangs over the family. The film places significant emphasis on the twins' relationship, highlighting small gestures of care, shared games, and moments of quiet understanding between them. These interactions are intimate without ever becoming sentimental, allowing the audience to invest fully in the characters' bonds. Hamnet's curiosity and vitality contrast sharply with the shadow of the plague and the societal pressures that constantly loom over the household, enhancing the sense of impending loss. The narrative's focus on the children's experiences adds an additional layer of poignancy, as the audience witnesses the world from their perspective, filled with wonder yet haunted by adult anxieties. Agnes's character arc is both central and compelling, portraying a woman caught between her own desires and the obligations imposed by a rigid social and familial structure. Buckley's performance captures the quiet determination that defines Agnes, a resilience born not of hardness, but of necessity. The way she moves through the forest, tending to both the land and her children, contrasts with the bustling and often indifferent life of London, where William pursues his career. These contrasting environments, the intimate domestic spaces of Stratford and the theatrical, chaotic streets of London, serve as external reflections of the characters' internal struggles. The cinematography emphasizes these contrasts with shifts in lighting, color grading, and framing that subtly communicate mood and tension without relying on exposition. William Shakespeare's portrayal by Paul Mescal is understated yet powerful, conveying the complex duality of a man torn between familial responsibility and professional ambition. His emotional restraint in private moments, particularly in response to Hamnet's illness, contrasts sharply with the passionate, performative life he inhabits in the theater. The film explores this duality not as a critique, but as an acknowledgement of the compromises inherent in human life. Mescal conveys both paternal love and frustration, offering the audience insight into a figure often mythologized in popular culture. The filmmakers focused on the human side of Shakespeare, the flawed, vulnerable father and husband, allowing the tragedy of Hamnet's death to resonate with the audience in a deeply personal way. The tension between duty to family and devotion to art becomes a central thematic thread, interweaving the personal and the professional in subtle, affecting ways. The visual storytelling continues to impress, with the forest and surrounding landscapes functioning almost as silent characters within the narrative. The recurring motif of the hawk, introduced in earlier scenes, is employed with increasing significance, symbolizing freedom, loss, and the continuity of memory. The production design and attention to historical detail also contribute to the film's immersive quality. A particularly striking element of the narrative is the way the film portrays the impact of Hamnet's death on the entire family. Rather than limiting grief to the parents alone, Judith's illness and Hamnet's eventual succumbing to the plague are presented with restrained intensity, emphasizing subtle emotional cues over melodrama. The supporting cast, including Emily Watson as Mary Shakespeare and Joe Alwyn as Bartholomew Hathaway, contribute nuanced performances that complement the leads. These characters are depicted not as secondary figures, but as integral participants in the unfolding tragedy, each grappling with societal expectations, personal fears, and the emotional fallout in their own ways. The ensemble's cohesion enhances the film's authenticity, creating a portrait of a family navigating loss with layered complexity. The film also incorporates Shakespeare's evolving relationship with his work as a vehicle for coping with grief. Scenes in London, where he rehearses and stages Hamlet, are interspersed with the quiet, sorrowful moments in Stratford, suggesting that his creative output is inseparable from his personal experience. These sequences are visually and emotionally rich, illustrating the interplay between art and life, creation and mourning. The audience is invited to consider the ways in which personal loss can inform artistic expression, a theme rendered both universal and historically specific. The editing, guided by a sensitive rhythm, ensures that these juxtapositions never feel jarring, but instead build an emotional arc that aligns with the characters' inner journeys. The film's sound design and score are also central to its immersive quality. Subtle musical cues accompanied the quiet moments of reflection and grief, often blending with natural sounds, wind rustling through the trees, distant church bells, or the faint murmur of village life to reinforce the emotional atmosphere. Composer Maggie O'Farrell, his contribution to the score is particularly effective, using minimalist instrumentation to evoke introspection and melancholy without overpowering the narrative. The climactic sequences, in which the family confronts the permanence of Hamnet's absence, are handled with restraint and dignity. There is no excessive dramatization or manipulation of the audience's emotions. Instead, the impact is achieved through careful pacing, measured performances, and the weight of accumulated narrative detail. Agnes's confrontation with Shakespeare, both in their shared grief and in the acknowledgement of his continued absences due to work, is tender and realistic. The film refuses to offer simplistic resolutions, instead embracing the ambiguity and complexity of human emotion, which contributes to its overall depth and resonance. Finally, the narrative reaches a meditative resolution as Agnes and Shakespeare witness the performance of Hamlet at the Globe Theatre. The layers of grief, memory, and artistic reflection converge in a scene that is both emotionally cathartic and intellectually satisfying. The interplay between the fictionalized Hamlet and the real-life Hamnet creates a poignant meta-narrative, bridging past and present, life and art. Buckley's reaction to the performance embodies a sense of closure, tempered by lingering sorrow, while Mescal's Shakespeare is both vulnerable and triumphant. The film concludes not with a dramatic flourish, but with quiet acknowledgement of loss, love, and the enduring power of memory. The exploration of family dynamics in Hamnet continues to reveal the subtle tensions and unspoken struggles that define the Shakespeare household. As the narrative unfolds, the audience gains insight into the nuanced ways grief reshapes the family's interactions and individual identities. Agnes demonstrates both resilience and vulnerability, carrying the weight of Hamnet's death while also attending to the needs of her surviving children. Jessie Buckley's portrayal captures these contradictions with remarkable skill. Her expressions convey a spectrum of emotions, from quiet sorrow to moments of sharp, protective resolve. The filmmakers focus on small gestures, Agnes adjusting her daughter's clothing, a tender touch to Hamnet's bed, or a reflective pause by the family's garden, that speak volumes about the character's internal states. These details emphasize the film's commitment to authenticity, grounding the story in human experience rather than dramatic spectacle. Shakespeare's character development remains central to the emotional texture of the film. Paul Mescal illustrates the complexities of a man striving to balance his obligations as a father and husband with the demands of a rising theatrical career. His absence during critical moments of family hardship creates tension, both between him and Agnes, and within the household itself. The scenes in which Shakespeare writes, rehearses, or observes actors in London serve to highlight the contrast between his public persona and his private grief. The filmmakers employ visual motifs, such as mirrors and reflective surfaces, to subtly underscore his dual existence, the outward-facing playwright versus the inward-facing, mourning father. These motifs reinforce the narrative's exploration of identity, responsibility, and the interplay between art and life, offering the audience a layered understanding of the character's motivations and struggles. The portrayal of the children continues to provide emotional depth, particularly in the depiction of Judith and Susanna, alongside Hamnet. The twins' interactions are crafted with precision, reflecting both the innocence of childhood and the shadow cast by mortality. The film emphasizes their emotional intelligence and awareness of their parents' anxieties, portraying them as sensitive participants in the household's collective mourning. The filmmakers use intimate camera work to capture fleeting expressions, shared glances, and moments of comfort between the siblings, allowing the audience to witness the quiet resilience of children confronted with loss. These sequences create a compelling counterpoint to the broader historical context, reminding viewers of the universality of grief and the ways in which it is experienced differently by each member of a family. Agnes's connection to the natural world and her knowledge of herbal remedies remain central to her characterization, serving both practical and symbolic purposes. Her interactions with the forest, the cave, and the hawk are imbued with a sense of mysticism, reinforcing her role as a caretaker and mediator between life and death. The filmmakers employ cinematography to highlight this connection, using natural light, carefully composed landscapes, and fluid camera movements to create an almost ethereal atmosphere. These choices allow the audience to perceive Agnes not only as a grieving mother, but also as a figure intertwined with the rhythms and cycles of nature. This interplay between character and environment enriches the narrative, giving weight to the themes of mortality, legacy, and the continuity of life beyond individual loss. The depiction of the plague and its impact on Stratford is both historically grounded and emotionally resonant. The film avoids sensationalism, instead focusing on the subtle disruptions to daily life and the pervasive anxiety that accompanies widespread illness. Scenes in which Judith falls ill are rendered with sensitivity, emphasizing the family's immediate concern, the uncertainty of prognosis, and the limited medical knowledge of the period. Hamnet's response to his sister's illness is both poignant and instructive, demonstrating his empathy and courage. These sequences heighten the narrative tension while maintaining the film's contemplative tone, allowing viewers to engage with the historical realities of the period without detracting from the intimate focus on individual characters. The film's approach to dialogue and language contributes to its immersive quality. Conversations are often understated, with much left unspoken, compelling the audience to read gestures, pauses, and expressions to fully grasp the emotional stakes. Shakespeare and Agnes communicate through shared understanding and subtle cues, reflecting a deep, nuanced relationship that transcends words. The filmmaker's restraint in scripting these moments ensures that the story retains a naturalistic rhythm, avoiding melodrama while amplifying emotional resonance. The interplay between speech and silence becomes a tool for characterization, revealing the interior lives of the characters and the weight of the experiences they carry. The thematic exploration of art as a conduit for memory and grief becomes more pronounced. Shakespeare's work, including early iterations of Hamlet, is depicted as both a professional endeavor and a personal coping mechanism. Scenes depicting rehearsals, creative discussions, and reflective writing moments illustrate how he channels personal loss into artistic expression. The narrative suggests that his literary achievements are inseparable from his experiences as a father and husband, providing the audience with an understanding of the profound interconnections between life, art, and emotion. The creative process is portrayed with a sense of reverence and realism, showing both its liberating and taxing dimensions, as well as the personal cost it exacts on those around him. The score and sound design continue to enhance the emotional depth of the story. Music is used sparingly but effectively, often in tandem with natural environmental sounds, to underscore tension, reflection, or quiet sorrow. These auditory elements work in tandem with the cinematography to create a sensory experience that is both intimate and expansive, grounding viewers in the physical and emotional world of the characters. The filmmaker's attention to auditory detail complements the narrative's focus on subtle emotional expression, reinforcing the overarching themes of mortality, memory, and familial bonds. The story also examines societal expectations and gender dynamics in Elizabethan England. Agnes' decisions and actions are frequently constrained by social norms and familial pressure, particularly regarding childbirth, domestic responsibilities, and public perception. These pressures are portrayed with sensitivity, allowing the audience to understand the nuanced interplay between personal agency and societal expectation. The film's historical authenticity, reflected in costumes, dialogue, and domestic rituals, reinforces the impact of these pressures on the characters' lives. Through Agnes's experiences, viewers gain insight into the historical limitations placed upon women and the resilience required to navigate them, adding an additional layer of depth to the narrative. The narrative maintains a consistent balance between historical accuracy and emotional storytelling. Events such as the birth of the twins, the death of Hamnet, and Shakespeare's theatrical endeavors are presented with careful attention to both factual grounding and dramatic impact. The filmmakers succeed in rendering historical events comprehensible and emotionally engaging, without sacrificing complexity. This balance allows the audience to connect deeply with the characters, while remaining aware of the broader historical context. A testament to the skillful adaptation of O'Farrell's novel into cinematic form. Every sequence is infused with purpose, whether to advance character development, underscore thematic concerns, or evoke the period's texture. Finally, the emotional resonance of the film is amplified by its focus on legacy and remembrance. The performance of Hamlet in London, and the subsequent recognition of Hamnet's presence within the play, offers both narrative and emotional closure. Agnes's response to the performance is both personal and reflective, illustrating the interplay between life, memory, and artistic tribute. The audience is left with a profound understanding of the film's central message, that grief, while painful, can inspire reflection, creativity, and enduring bonds across time and space. The depiction of grief deepens as the narrative explores the enduring impact of Hamnet's death on each family member. Agnes' sorrow is portrayed not as a single overwhelming event, but as a series of recurring, subtle moments that infiltrate daily life. Jessie Buckley conveys the quiet persistence of her grief, with understated gestures, a hand lingering over Hamnet's belongings, a pause when passing the empty room, or a fleeting glance at the family garden. These details create an intimate connection between the viewer and the character, allowing the audience to experience mourning as an ongoing, multifaceted process. The filmmakers focus on these moments of reflection to highlight the personal cost of loss, emphasizing that grief shapes relationships, decisions, and perceptions over time. Shakespeare's response to tragedy contrasts with Agnes' introspective mourning. Paul Mescal portrays a man who oscillates between absence and engagement, trying to reconcile his responsibilities as a father with his obligations as a playwright. The tension created by his frequent departures to London intensifies the emotional landscape, revealing the challenges of balancing professional ambition with familial bonds. Scenes depicting his creative process are interwoven with his personal losses, illustrating how art becomes both refuge and burden. The camera captures his isolated moments in study or rehearsal with careful attention to lighting and composition, underscoring the solitude that accompanies his genius. These sequences highlight the interplay between personal experience and artistic creation, reinforcing the film's thematic exploration of how life informs art. The film continues to examine the psychological development of the children, particularly Judith and Susanna, whose resilience contrasts with Hamnet's vulnerability. Their interactions reflect both innocence and heightened awareness, demonstrating how children internalize family dynamics and emotional climates. Subtle details, such as Judith mimicking her mother's protective gestures, or Susanna showing concern for her siblings, communicate complex emotions without exposition. The filmmaker's use of close-ups and restrained camera movement allows the audience to absorb these nuances, providing insight into the emotional depth of the family unit. Agnes's relationship with nature continues to serve as a symbolic extension of her emotional state. Her frequent excursions into the forest, the care she takes in tending to the hawk, and the reverence shown to the natural cycles, all reflect her desire for stability and understanding amid chaos. Nature functions as a silent companion and witness, mirroring Agnes's emotions, while offering a sense of continuity and connection. The interplay between the character and her environment enriches the narrative, highlighting the resilience and resourcefulness required to navigate profound loss. The depiction of disease and mortality continues to inform the tension and urgency of the story. The film portrays the plague's reach and the accompanying anxiety with both historical accuracy and emotional gravity. Hamnet's illness is presented with deliberate pacing, showing the gradual decline of his health and the family's mounting concern. These moments are carefully constructed to avoid sensationalism, instead focusing on the human experience of fear, helplessness, and care. The audience witnesses the intricate dynamics of familial protection and support, observing how Agnes and Shakespeare respond differently yet complementarily to the crisis. The narrative demonstrates that grief and responsibility are shared experiences, affecting every member of the household in profound ways. Language and dialogue continue to reflect the film's subtle emotional storytelling. Conversations are often sparse, with meaning conveyed through tone, timing, and physical cues, rather than exposition. Shakespeare and Agnes communicate in ways that highlight intimacy, trust, and mutual understanding. The filmmakers use pauses, glances, and careful framing to convey depth and emotion, allowing viewers to engage actively with the story. Silence is as powerful as speech, often carrying more weight than words, and this narrative technique emphasizes the complexity of human relationships. The restrained dialogue reinforces the film's atmosphere of contemplative realism, encouraging audiences to attend to the emotional texture of each interaction. Artistic creation remains intertwined with personal grief, reflecting the ways in which Shakespeare channels his emotions into his craft. The depiction of his writing and rehearsal processes illustrates the dual nature of art as both an expression of internal struggle and a public performance. Scenes of Shakespeare refining passages, directing actors, or revising lines convey a sense of meticulous care and emotional investment. These sequences underscore the film's exploration of the connection between life experience and artistic output, The narrative suggests that creative work offers a pathway to process grief, honor memory, and communicate emotions that might otherwise remain unexpressed. The film's attention to historical detail continues to enrich the viewing experience. Every visual element, from the texture of clothing to the layout of domestic spaces, reinforces authenticity and supports the narrative. The filmmaker's meticulous research ensures that these details contribute organically to the story, enhancing the audience's understanding of character choices and societal pressures. These elements also highlight the constraints placed upon women and children, contextualizing Agnes' decisions and the broader implications of family dynamics during this period. Historical fidelity strengthens the narrative's emotional resonance, demonstrating that the story's impact derives from both personal and cultural realities. Sound design and musical scoring remain critical to the film's emotional landscape. The music underscores moments of reflection, tension, and grief without overwhelming the scene. Natural ambient sounds, the rustling of leaves, the distant call of birds, the creaking of floorboards augment the film's realism, drawing viewers into the environment. The combination of music and natural sounds provides a nuanced emotional framework, guiding the audience's response to character experiences and emphasizing the film's contemplative tone. The film continues to explore societal expectations and gender roles, particularly through Agnes's interactions with extended family and community members. Her autonomy is constrained by cultural norms, and her actions are often subject to scrutiny or misinterpretation. These dynamics are depicted with subtlety, emphasizing the quiet resilience required to navigate a patriarchal society while maintaining moral and emotional integrity. Agnes's character embodies the tension between societal expectation and personal agency, demonstrating the complexities of navigating family, community, and personal identity. The narrative underscores the challenges faced by women in historical contexts, illuminating the pressures and sacrifices inherent in maintaining both dignity and influence. Finally, the depiction of memory and legacy shapes the film's emotional trajectory. The narrative frames the performance of Hamlet as a culmination of personal loss, artistic expression, and remembrance. Agnes's recognition of her son's presence within the play offers closure, highlighting the transformative power of art to commemorate and honor those who have passed. The grief experienced by Agnes evolves further as the narrative delves into her attempts to find solace in daily routines and familial responsibilities. Jessie Buckley portrays a character who oscillates between outward composure and private anguish, demonstrating how mourning infiltrates ordinary life. Agnes' interactions with her remaining children are tinged with tenderness and caution, as she seeks to protect them while processing her own sorrow. Each glance, gesture, and moment of attentiveness underscores her ongoing internal struggle. The filmmaker's focus on the minutiae of daily existence, showing how grief manifests not only in dramatic expressions, but also in the subtle rhythms of life quietly, influencing choices, relationships, and emotional states. This approach invites viewers to connect with Agnes's experiences on a deeply personal level. Shakespeare's character development continues alongside Agnes's journey, highlighting the tension between artistic ambition and paternal obligation. Paul Mescal portrays a man who is both deeply committed to his craft and acutely aware of his absence from home. His creative process is depicted as an intricate interplay between personal emotion and public performance. Scenes of rehearsal and writing are interspersed with moments of isolation and longing, emphasizing the duality of his existence. These depictions illustrate how loss and longing are transformed into creative energy, reflecting the historical reality that Shakespeare's experiences often informed his work. The film emphasizes the complex relationship between personal suffering and artistic output, revealing how the demands of genius coexist with the demands of family life. The narrative pays close attention to the younger characters, particularly Judith and Susanna, whose development is shaped by both tragedy and the protective guidance of their parents. Their resilience is highlighted through subtle behavioral cues, interactions, and moments of insight. For example, Judith demonstrates empathy and attentiveness, echoing Agnes' care, while Susanna exhibits independence and resourcefulness. These portrayals emphasize the multifaceted impact of loss on children, showing how they absorb, interpret, and respond to family dynamics. The nuanced depiction of their emotional growth adds complexity to the narrative, illustrating the enduring influence of familial bonds. Agnes' connection to nature remains a central motif, reflecting her psychological and emotional states. Her time spent in the forest, attention to the hawk, and engagement with natural surroundings provide a parallel to her internal landscape. The cinematography emphasizes the beauty and continuity of the natural world, using light, texture, and movement to evoke a sense of stability amid uncertainty. Nature serves as both refuge and mirror, allowing Agnes to process grief while remaining connected to life cycles beyond her control. The filmmaker's use of visual symbolism enhances the narrative, conveying the depth of Agnes's emotional experiences without relying on explicit dialogue. This thematic element reinforces the film's exploration of resilience, memory, and the restorative power of the natural environment. The narrative's depiction of illness and mortality continues to shape the story's tension. Hamnet's decline is rendered with sensitivity, avoiding melodrama while illustrating the profound emotional impact on the family. Careful attention to detail in staging, pacing, and performance ensures that the audience witnesses both the physical and emotional dimensions of illness. Agnes' role as caregiver is emphasized, highlighting her resourcefulness, determination, and emotional fortitude. Shakespeare's intermittent presence underscores the challenges of maintaining familial cohesion amid personal and professional obligations. Through these elements, the film portrays the complexity of caregiving, responsibility, and loss, offering a nuanced perspective on the interplay between mortality and human resilience. Dialogue and interaction maintain their understated power throughout the narrative. Communication between characters is often indirect, conveyed through gestures, eye contact, or pauses, highlighting the unspoken dimensions of human connection. Shakespeare and Agnes' exchanges are rich with subtlety, allowing the audience to perceive emotional truths beyond the spoken word. These carefully crafted interactions enhanced character depth, emphasizing the intimacy and tension inherent in familial and marital relationships. Silence is used strategically to create emotional resonance, underscoring the weight of absence, longing, and reflection. The narrative's focus on nonverbal communication reinforces its exploration of grief, resilience, and emotional endurance. The integration of artistic creation into personal experience remains a prominent theme. Shakespeare's engagement with theatrical work is depicted as inseparable from his lived experiences, suggesting that artistic expression functions as both coping mechanism and tribute. Scenes of writing, directing, and rehearsing are imbued with emotional subtext, demonstrating how the personal and professional spheres intersect. The film presents art as a medium through which grief, memory, and legacy are negotiated. Through careful attention to process and performance, the audience gains insight into the ways in which creativity offers both solace and challenge, illustrating the enduring connection between experience and expression. Historical authenticity continues to inform the visual and narrative fabric of the film. Costumes, sets, and cultural practices are meticulously detailed, grounding the story in Elizabethan England and providing context for character behavior. The filmmaker's commitment to accuracy enhances the audience's understanding of social norms, gender roles, and familial expectations. These elements contribute organically to character development, illustrating how external pressures shape personal decisions and interactions. Historical detail enriches the emotional weight of the story, emphasizing the challenges faced by women and children in navigating social constraints while maintaining agency and moral integrity. Sound and music design remain integral to the storytelling. Subtle scores, ambient sounds, and carefully modulated silence amplify emotional impact without dictating audience response. The rustle of leaves, the call of birds, and the creaking of household floors create a sensory backdrop that situates viewers within the narrative world. Music underscores key emotional beats, enhancing reflection, tension, and resolution. These auditory elements provide texture and depth, guiding audience engagement while maintaining narrative subtlety. The combined use of sound and music reflects the filmmaker's dedication to immersive and nuanced storytelling. Themes of memory, loss, and legacy are explored with increasing intensity. The narrative examines how individuals memorialize the departed and negotiate the emotional aftermath of death. Agnes' recognition of her son's influence on Shakespeare's work underscores the complex interplay of personal experience, creative expression, and enduring memory. The audience observes how grief informs decisions, relationships, and artistic output, highlighting the transformative power of loss. Narrative structure, performance, and visual composition work together to ensure that these themes resonate with clarity and emotional authenticity, creating a rich and contemplative viewing experience. The film also engages with societal and gendered expectations. Agnes' interactions with family and community members reflect historical constraints, social scrutiny, and moral judgments. The narrative portrays the quiet negotiation of autonomy, illustrating the resilience required to assert personal agency within a restrictive environment. Agnes' moral and emotional decisions are framed in the context of societal pressures, highlighting the courage and deliberation necessary to navigate both familial and public domains. These depictions emphasize the broader thematic concern with the intersection of personal agency, social norms, and ethical responsibility, adding layers of complexity to the story. Finally, the depiction of performance as tribute emerges as a culminating narrative device. Shakespeare's staging of Hamlet functions as both commemoration and catharsis, symbolizing the convergence of art and personal experience. Agnes' response to the performance, her recognition of Hamnet's presence within the play, and her emotional resolution provide the audience with a sense of closure. Through visual composition, performance, and careful attention to character interiority, the film delivers a profound meditation on loss, remembrance, and the enduring influence of human experience. The film's exploration of grief continues to deepen as it emphasizes the intricate dynamics between memory, presence, and absence within the Shakespeare household. Agnes' reflections on Hamnet's life and untimely death are interwoven with her observations of Judith and Susanna, highlighting how the impact of loss resonates across generations. Jessie Buckley conveys a nuanced performance, showing a woman who simultaneously manages the practical demands of daily life and the profound emotional weight of mourning. Each interaction, from gentle guidance to silent observation, illustrates the subtle ways grief shapes behavior, reinforcing the film's attention to internal experience. The emotional resonance is amplified by quiet, lingering shots that allow viewers to absorb the depth of Agnes' struggle, creating an intimate connection between character and audience. Shakespeare's responses to loss and responsibility continue to reveal the tension between personal ambition and familial obligation. Mescal's portrayal emphasizes a man deeply invested in his art, while remaining acutely aware of the consequences of absence at home. Scenes of writing and rehearsal are framed as both escapes and confrontations, where creative energy intersects with emotional turmoil. The narrative presents Shakespeare's craft as inseparable from his experiences, suggesting that personal tragedy informs both the themes and emotional intensity of his work. This alignment of life and art creates a layered depiction of creativity, where personal suffering and artistic output are intertwined, offering insight into the historical figures, psychology, and motivations. Judith's development emerges as a critical component of the narrative, portraying a child navigating fear, illness, and family upheaval. The depiction of her illness is handled with restraint and emotional depth, emphasizing both vulnerability and resilience. Agnes' guidance and reassurance shape Judith's recovery, illustrating the protective and nurturing aspects of parental care. Subtle visual cues, such as body language, gaze, and positioning, communicate the unspoken bond between mother and child. Susanna's growth is similarly observed, demonstrating how the family adapts collectively to adversity. Agnes' connection to the natural world retains symbolic and narrative significance, serving as a lens for her emotional state. Her engagement with the forest, attention to the hawk, and contemplative walks are rendered with cinematic precision, emphasizing both refuge and continuity amid tragedy. Light, texture, and movement in outdoor sequences underscore Agnes's inner landscape, mirroring her oscillation between despair and hope. The hawk remains a recurring symbol of spiritual guidance and emotional connection, embodying both protection and the enduring presence of the departed. Illness and death are depicted not only as individual experiences, but as shared realities with social and emotional repercussions. Agnes' responses to Hamnet's illness illustrate careful attention, decisiveness, and moral courage, emphasizing her centrality in maintaining household stability. Shakespeare's partial absence highlights the strain on marital and parental relationships, illustrating how personal pursuits can conflict with communal and familial obligations. These elements convey the multifaceted impact of mortality, showing both the intimate consequences for the family and the broader implications for social and artistic life in the period. Dialogue remains understated, but highly expressive, communicating emotional truths through restraint and implication, rather than explicit declaration. Exchanges between Agnes and Shakespeare, as well as with their children, rely on gaze, gesture, and timing to convey the complexity of affection, loss, and understanding. Silence and pauses carry as much weight as spoken words, reflecting the psychological intricacies of human communication during grief. The film's emphasis on nonverbal expression highlights the delicate negotiation between revealing vulnerability and preserving dignity, allowing audiences to perceive layered emotional landscapes. These interactions reinforce the narrative's focus on intimacy, authenticity, and the nuanced depiction of familial relationships. Artistic creation is positioned as both reflection and mediation of emotional experience. Shakespeare's engagement with Hamlet is informed by his personal encounters with mortality, guilt, and responsibility, illustrating the permeable boundary between life and artistic representation. Scenes depicting rehearsals, staging, and performance are imbued with subtext, revealing how tragedy can inform expression. The interplay of personal history and theatrical narrative conveys a meditation on memory, legacy, and the transformative power of art. Through these sequences, the audience observes how creativity can offer both solace and confrontation, translating emotional reality into narrative form. The film maintains historical verisimilitude through meticulously constructed settings, costumes, and social interactions. Elizabethan cultural norms, gendered expectations, and familial hierarchies shape character, behavior, and narrative choices. Costuming reflects status, personality, and psychological state, while interior and exterior spaces provide insight into daily life and societal context. This historical grounding enhances the plausibility of character motivations, allowing viewers to understand decisions within their temporal and cultural framework. Authenticity in design and setting strengthens the emotional weight of the narrative, demonstrating how external conditions intersect with internal experiences of grief, responsibility, and aspiration. The musical score punctuates pivotal emotional moments, subtly accentuating reflection, tension, or relief without overwhelming the narrative. Silence is employed strategically, reinforcing the gravity of certain experiences and allowing viewers to inhabit character perspective. Themes of legacy and remembrance permeate the storyline, exploring how the presence of the departed continues to influence family, art, and personal identity. Agnes's perception of her son's influence on Shakespeare's writing demonstrates the enduring resonance of grief, while Shakespeare's theatrical work manifests as a public testament to private loss. The narrative illustrates how memory can be both a source of anguish and a vehicle for creative and emotional continuity. By observing how each character negotiates remembrance and emotional responsibility, viewers gain insight into the processes by which grief shapes identity, relationships, and legacy across time. The societal dimensions of the narrative are reinforced through interactions with extended family and community members. Agnes navigates expectations, moral judgments, and practical constraints, demonstrating agency and resourcefulness. The film underscores the courage required to assert autonomy within restrictive social environments, highlighting both resilience and vulnerability. These social interactions contextualize personal experiences within broader communal and historical frameworks, providing perspective on gender roles, familial duty, and moral accountability. The narrative thereby bridges individual emotion and social reality, illuminating the intricate structures within which grief, creativity, and responsibility unfold. Performance and narrative converge in the climactic depiction of Hamlet, where Shakespeare's art functions as homage, catharsis, and personal reflection. The staging of the play is interlaced with Agnes's emotional response, emphasizing the resonance of artistic representation with lived experience. The audience within the film mirrors the external audience, offering a layered perspective on the power of theater to communicate and process grief. Agnes's recognition of her son's presence within the narrative creates a moment of emotional convergence, where memory, performance, and cathartic release intersect. The interplay of character, audience, and art reinforces the central thematic concern with continuity, remembrance, and the transformative power of creative expression. The depiction of closure and reconciliation remains emotionally grounded and realistic. Agnes's engagement with the performance of Hamlet permits reflection on both personal and artistic legacies, providing a framework for processing loss. The narrative emphasizes emotional truth, portraying resolution as a product of reflection, recognition, and intimate connection rather than overt dramatization. These concluding moments highlight the film's commitment to portraying grief, resilience, and artistic engagement with honesty, depth, and subtlety. Through careful visual composition, pacing, and performance, the audience is invited to share in the emotional trajectory of the characters, achieving both empathy and insight. The aftermath of Hamnet's death continues to shape the lives of William Shakespeare and Agnes Hathaway, deepening their emotional and psychological landscape. The household, once vibrant with the energy of children, now carries a quiet weight that permeates every action and interaction. Agnes's grief manifests in both subtle and visible ways, influencing her approach to daily life and her connection with her surviving children, Susanna and Judith. Jessie Buckley's performance emphasizes the nuances of mourning, portraying a character who is never overtly broken, but is instead profoundly altered by loss. Her movements, tone of voice, and gaze communicate sorrow layered with enduring strength, creating a depiction of grief that is both authentic and deeply human. Shakespeare's responses to his family's situation are equally intricate. Paul Mescal captures a man torn between public acclaim and private anguish, revealing the contradictions inherent in balancing career and family obligations. His dedication to the theatre is juxtaposed with moments of tender paternal care, particularly when attending to Judith and Susanna. These sequences highlight his emotional duality, showing a man capable of both great love and significant detachment. The tension between his devotion to art and his responsibilities at home underlines a central theme of the narrative: the intersection of personal loss and creative pursuit. Shakespeare's nuanced portrayal provides a window into the historical figure as a human being, vulnerable, conflicted, and enduringly expressive. The film continues to employ natural landscapes and domestic settings to underscore the family's emotional state. The forest surrounding the Shakespeare home is depicted with a lingering, contemplative gaze often shown in muted light or filtered through mist. These scenes create an atmosphere of reflection, connecting the characters to the cycles of life and nature. The home itself, filled with period-appropriate furnishings and artifacts, becomes a space where memory and presence coexist, and every object serves as a reminder of past joys and recent sorrows. The filmmaker's meticulous attention to detail ensures that each frame contributes to the overarching emotional tone, allowing audiences to feel the weight of absence and the lingering presence of Hamnet. The narrative places significant focus on the surviving children, Susanna and Judith, exploring how they adapt to the absence of their brother. Olivia Lyne's portrayal of Judith captures the fragile balance between fear, resilience, and curiosity that defines a child confronted with mortality. The twins' close relationship, once marked by playful companionship, now transforms as Judith seeks to understand death and its implications. Her moments of questioning, contemplation, and silent observation reveal the film's commitment to portraying childhood with authenticity and sensitivity. Susanna's interactions with both her mother and father provide another lens through which grief is experienced, reflecting the ways in which individual members of a family process loss differently while remaining bound by shared history. Agnes' practices of herbal medicine continue to serve as both practical and symbolic elements within the story. Her use of remedies, often tied to the forest and its resources, illustrates a connection between human care and the natural world. These practices emphasize her role as both nurturer and healer, suggesting that the act of tending to life is inseparable from the understanding of mortality. The mystical undertones associated with her knowledge of herbs reinforce the film's exploration of memory, loss, and the continuity of existence. Agnes' movements through the forest and her attention to detail in caring for the children serve as a visual meditation on the responsibilities and emotional labor of caregiving under conditions of grief. Shakespeare's professional life remains a central narrative strand, intersecting with his personal experiences in meaningful ways. Scenes of rehearsals and performances of Hamlet in London are interwoven with quiet domestic moments, emphasizing how his work is both an escape and a reflection of internal struggles. The film illustrates the way in which art and life are inseparable, suggesting that creative expression can serve as a channel for processing complex emotions. Through Shakespeare, audiences witness the transformative power of storytelling, seeing how personal tragedy informs professional output. The performances he directs and participates in mirror the family's emotional journey, creating layers of resonance between the fictional and real, past and present. The supporting cast continues to add depth and dimension to the narrative. Emily Watson, as Mary Shakespeare, embodies the generational perspective, offering a glimpse into family expectations, historical norms, and maternal concern. Joe Alwyn, as Bartholomew Hathaway, provides a counterpoint, reflecting loyalty, practical care, and occasional frustration in dealing with grief-stricken loved ones. These characters are fully realized, serving as integral participants rather than peripheral figures. Their presence enhances the emotional richness of the story, demonstrating the interplay between individual experience and familial dynamics, as well as the broader social and cultural context of the period. Symbolism and visual motifs maintain a central role throughout the film. The hawk, representing memory, freedom, and the continuing presence of Hamnet, reappears in key sequences. Its imagery is subtle but impactful, often appearing in moments of reflection, both for Agnes and the children. These symbolic touches underscore the narrative's meditation on loss and remembrance, reinforcing that absence does not signify erasure but rather transformation. Similarly, the interplay of light and shadow, weather conditions, and the changing seasons mirrors the family's emotional trajectory, highlighting transitions in mood, perception, and internal resolution. The film's pacing is deliberate, allowing emotional developments to emerge gradually and naturally. Scenes are afforded time to breathe, providing the audience with opportunities to internalize the weight of events and empathize with the characters' perspectives. The restraint in editing, coupled with careful cinematography, ensures that each narrative beat carries significance. Moments of silence, stillness, and observation are utilized to deepen emotional resonance, emphasizing that grief and love are not only expressed through dialogue, but also through presence, attention, and quiet reflection. In depicting the broader community's response to the tragedy, the film highlights societal structures and attitudes toward illness, death, and family. Villagers, neighbors, and local authorities appear not merely as background figures, but as elements that shape and influence the family's experience. Their interactions with the Shakespeare household illuminate both the support and judgment inherent in a close-knit society. This external dimension adds realism and situational tension, showing how private sorrow is always intertwined with public observation, social expectation, and historical circumstance. The narrative continues to explore the intersection of mortality and artistic creation. Shakespeare's work on Hamlet serves as a focal point for processing grief, with rehearsals and performances becoming acts of remembrance. The film portrays the theater not only as a profession, but as a sanctuary where personal emotion transforms into communal experience. These sequences reinforce the idea that art, memory, and life are interdependent, illustrating how human creativity can transmute suffering into beauty and shared understanding. Through performance, Shakespeare finds a conduit for expressing the ineffable, offering audiences both historical insight and emotional depth. The final sequences of this part focus on Agnes's reflections and her interactions with surviving family members. The camera captures her nuanced expressions, conveying layers of sorrow, acceptance, and quiet resilience. The household continues to function as a site of remembrance, its objects, routines, and spaces infused with memory. These scenes underscore the enduring presence of Hamnet in the lives of those he touched. Agnes and Shakespeare, through subtle gestures and shared moments, reveal the ongoing negotiation between past loss and present living, demonstrating the resilience of family bonds in the face of profound tragedy. Life in the Shakespeare household settles into a quiet routine, but the shadow of Hamnet's absence remains pervasive. Agnes's grief is no longer expressed in outward lamentation, but manifests in the smallest of gestures. In the careful tending of her home and children, Jessie Buckley portrays her with remarkable subtlety, allowing moments of introspection and private sorrow to communicate the depth of her emotional landscape. Her movements, often deliberate and measured, convey both the weight of memory and the strength required to maintain daily life. Shakespeare's professional obligations continue to draw him to London, creating both physical and emotional distance from his family. Paul Mescal conveys a character caught between two worlds, one of public acclaim and one of private mourning. His letters to Agnes, read aloud in reflective voiceovers, serve as a conduit for expressing emotions that cannot be spoken in person. These letters reveal his persistent concern for the household, his longing for the children, and the tension between duty and desire. The surviving children, Susanna and Judith, navigate their own processes of understanding and coping with loss. Olivia Lyne's portrayal of Judith captures the mixture of curiosity and apprehension that defines a child attempting to make sense of mortality. Her interactions with Agnes highlight the transmission of wisdom and comfort, demonstrating how adults attempt to guide young minds through experiences they themselves struggle to fully comprehend. Susanna, observed in quiet domestic routines and moments of play, provides a complementary perspective, illustrating how grief can be mediated by routine, imagination, and sibling companionship. Agnes' herbal practices remain central to the visual and thematic landscape of the narrative. The forest, a place of solace and reflection, becomes a backdrop for her meticulous preparation of remedies and her contemplative walks. These sequences underscore her intimate connection to nature, suggesting that her grief and healing are intertwined with the cycles of the world around her. Each plant, each poultice, carries symbolic weight, reinforcing the narrative's exploration of mortality, care, and continuity. The film explores the broader societal context of illness and death, reflecting both the precariousness of life in the period and the communal dimensions of mourning. Villagers and neighbors appear as characters whose presence reinforces both support and social expectation. Their interactions with the Shakespeare household illuminate the pressures and judgments faced by families in times of loss. The filmmakers depict these relationships with subtlety, allowing glimpses of concern, curiosity, and respect to inform the story without overwhelming the central narrative. This attention to social dynamics situates personal grief within a larger human and historical framework, enhancing the audience's understanding of the character's experiences. Shakespeare's engagement with Hamlet continues to serve as a mirror for his personal emotions. Rehearsals and performances provide him with an avenue to explore themes of mortality, loss, and familial duty in a manner that is both creative and therapeutic. The narrative emphasizes that art and life are inseparable, with the emotional intensity of the plays reflecting and refracting the reality of his domestic life. The interplay between fictional and historical elements creates a layered storytelling effect, inviting the audience to consider how personal experiences shape artistic output. Visual motifs are employed to reinforce the thematic continuity of the film. The recurring presence of the hawk, representing memory, freedom, and the ongoing presence of Hamnet, appears in quiet, yet emotionally charged moments. Its symbolism deepens the narrative's exploration of absence and remembrance, creating a visual shorthand for the persistence of memory. Lighting, shadow, and the changing seasons further support the emotional landscape, marking shifts in mood, time, and internal perspective. The rustle of leaves, distant church bells, and the soft movements of children create a sonic texture that complements the visual storytelling. In moments of heightened tension or reflection, silence is utilized effectively, emphasizing the weight of unspoken emotion and allowing the audience to inhabit the spaces between characters, words, and actions. Interactions between Agnes and Shakespeare highlight the ongoing negotiation between grief and practical necessity. Scenes depicting shared meals, correspondence, and quiet reflection convey the complexity of maintaining connection in the wake of tragedy. Buckley and Mescal navigate these sequences with emotional authenticity, portraying a marriage that is neither idealized nor simplistic. The tension between personal loss and societal expectation is made tangible through gestures, pauses, and glances, demonstrating the subtle power of nuanced performance. The film's attention to detail in production design and historical accuracy continues to enhance the immersive quality. Period-appropriate costumes, household furnishings, and village architecture create a convincing sense of place, grounding the story in the lived reality of late 16th century England. Careful attention to props, textures, and spatial composition ensures that every scene feels authentic, supporting the narrative's thematic focus on mortality, memory, and family dynamics. The children's experiences are depicted with sensitivity and insight. Small moments of play, exploration, and interaction with nature are imbued with significance, reflecting both the joys of childhood and the shadow of loss. These scenes are neither sentimental nor trivial. They provide the audience with an understanding of how young minds negotiate the intersection of wonder and mortality. Finally, the narrative gradually moves toward reconciliation and subtle resolution. Agnes and Shakespeare's understanding of grief evolves, shaped by the passage of time, attention to their surviving children, and engagement with personal and professional life. Their interactions, while marked by sorrow, also reflect moments of tenderness, insight, and mutual respect. The story emphasizes continuity, portraying grief not as a temporary state, but as an ongoing, navigable dimension of life. Through reflection, care, and connection, the family begins to integrate their loss into the rhythms of daily existence, demonstrating the resilience of human emotion and the enduring power of familial bonds. The passing months bring a fragile equilibrium to the Shakespeare household. Agnes navigates her days with a sense of quiet determination, attending to the needs of her children, while maintaining the routines of domestic life. Jessie Buckley's portrayal imbues Agnes with a subtle intensity. Her calm demeanor conceals the profound depth of her sorrow, and each small gesture, tending the garden, arranging a meal, teaching her children's imbued with significance. The camera lingers on these ordinary actions, emphasizing their emotional weight and the meticulous care required to sustain life after loss. Agnes's strength is not performative. It is quiet, practical, and rooted in love, which makes her resilience all the more affecting. Shakespeare's career in London continues to flourish, yet his achievements are shadowed by personal grief. Paul Mescal conveys a man divided, his public success juxtaposed against private anguish. Letters and occasional visits to Stratford reveal a father's concern and longing for connection, and his interactions with the children demonstrate both affection and the limitations imposed by distance. The film emphasizes that, even amidst professional accomplishment, the void left by Hamnet remains central to Shakespeare's experience. These sequences explore the tension between ambition and duty, showing how personal loss can shape, inform, and sometimes complicate creative endeavors. The surviving children, Susanna and Judith, continue to grapple with the consequences of mortality and memory. Olivia Lyons portrays Judith with a nuanced mixture of curiosity and vulnerability, while Bodhi Ray Brethnak brings Susanna's thoughtful and observant nature to the screen. The twins' continued interactions reveal a blend of innocence and awareness, moments of play intertwined with reflections on absence. Small, intimate scenes, shared stories, quiet games, and visits to the forest reveal the ways children process grief in both conscious and unconscious ways. Their development underscores the film's exploration of the intersection between childhood, loss, and resilience. Agnes's connection to the natural world deepens, with the forest serving as both refuge and symbol. Her preparation of herbal remedies continues, blending practical application with meditative reflection. The filmmakers use these sequences to reinforce the themes of healing, memory, and mortality. The forest, depicted with meticulous attention to light, color, and movement, becomes a character in its own right, echoing the rhythms of life and loss. Scenes of Agnes tending to plants, observing wildlife, and wandering the woods evoke a sense of continuity, suggesting that life, despite tragedy, persists in cycles that both comfort and challenge the living. London provides a stark contrast to Stratford, representing both opportunity and distraction. Shakespeare's professional environment is lively, chaotic, and filled with the energy of performance. Rehearsals for Hamlet and other plays illustrate his continued creative engagement, offering moments of catharsis and reflection. The city, bustling and vibrant, emphasizes the isolation he experiences in personal matters, highlighting the dissonance between the demands of public life and the needs of family. Mescal's performance captures the strain of balancing these two worlds, portraying a man whose inner life is profoundly affected by loss, yet who must continue to function and create. Shakespeare's works, increasingly infused with themes of mortality, grief, and familial complexity, serve as both outlet and memorial. Scenes of him directing actors, revising scripts, and observing performances demonstrate the deliberate engagement with themes that mirror his own life. Agnes' domestic world, by contrast, is intimate and richly detailed. Meals are prepared with care, letters are read aloud in soft tones, and small gestures of affection between mother and children are highlighted. Buckley's performance communicates a layered interiority, showing how the mundane routines of life carry the significance of emotional labor. These sequences emphasize the contrast between the private sphere of grief and the public sphere of ambition, offering insight into how each character navigates their respective realities. The recurring motif of the hawk retains its symbolic resonance, representing both loss and memory. Agnes' interactions with this emblematic presence are filmed with a delicate blend of realism and dreamlike quality. The hawk appears in moments of reflection, guiding attention to the ongoing influence of Hamnet's life and absence. These sequences subtly reinforce the narrative's focus on continuity, demonstrating that grief is not simply a temporal state, but a force that shapes perception, behavior, and familial bonds over time. The presence of the hawk underscores the delicate balance between remembrance and the necessity of moving forward. Interactions with secondary characters deepen the narrative's emotional texture. Bartholomew Hathaway, Agnes' supportive yet complex brother, continues to provide perspective and guidance. Emily Watson's Mary Shakespeare offers a nuanced depiction of maternal observation, revealing the broader generational context of grief and familial obligation. Their engagement with Agnes and Shakespeare highlights the communal dimensions of mourning, illustrating how individuals navigate personal loss within networks of social expectation and shared history. These characters are treated with respect and subtlety, their contributions enriching the primary narrative without detracting from the central emotional journey. The narrative gradually explores the children's understanding of mortality, loss, and continuity. Judith and Susanna observe the rhythms of nature, participate in household tasks, and engage with their mother's teachings. Their development is portrayed without sentimentality, emphasizing authenticity and the subtle ways in which children internalize grief. The twins' growing awareness of life's fragility adds an additional layer of poignancy, reinforcing the stakes of human relationships and the lasting impact of absence. Their experiences provide counterpoints to the adult characters, illustrating the interplay between innocence and knowledge, wonder and awareness. Agnes and Shakespeare continued to negotiate the complexities of partnership and shared grief. Moments of conversation, silent contemplation, and unspoken acknowledgement form the emotional backbone of the film. Buckley and Mescal convey a marriage that is realistic in its imperfections, highlighting the resilience and fragility inherent in long-term relationships. These sequences are crafted with precision, showing that understanding, patience, and emotional presence are essential to navigating ongoing loss. The film emphasizes subtlety and authenticity, portraying the couple's journey as one shaped by enduring affection, sorrow, and the persistence of memory. Visual and auditory design reinforce the emotional and thematic depth of the narrative. The interplay of light and shadow, the careful framing of interiors, and the integration of environmental sound create a vivid sense of place. Musical motifs underscore moments of reflection and subtle emotional shifts, complementing rather than dominating the story. These choices sustain immersion, allowing the audience to inhabit the world of Stratford and London fully, while remaining attuned to the inner lives of the characters. The sensory elements enhance the film's ability to communicate complex emotional realities, emphasizing the interplay between perception, memory, and experience. The narrative maintains focus on resilience and the slow integration of loss into daily life. Agnes' routines, Shakespeare's professional commitments, and the children's activities all demonstrate adaptation and continuity. The story conveys that grief does not vanish, but becomes woven into the fabric of existence, influencing actions, decisions, and emotional responses. This thematic strand is reinforced through careful pacing, deliberate visual composition, and restrained performances. The audience is invited to observe the quiet, persistent rhythms of life that continue amidst the lingering presence of absence. As the story progresses, the film emphasizes the interconnectedness of memory, grief, and creation. Shakespeare's artistic work remains informed by personal loss, while Agnes' domestic and herbal practices signify both practical care and symbolic resilience. The children's experiences provide a grounding perspective, showing how life continues in cycles of play, learning, and adaptation. Through these narrative threads, the film presents a multifaceted exploration of human response to mortality, balancing sorrow, remembrance, and hope within a historical and familial framework. Life in Stratford acquires a measured rhythm as the seasons change, offering Agnes a framework within which to navigate her grief and responsibilities. The early morning light falls softly across the garden, illuminating the dew on herbs she has carefully cultivated, each plant a quiet testament to patience and attentiveness. Jessie Buckley embodies Agnes' emotional presence with subtle precision, conveying the weight of loss while also revealing the resilience required to sustain a household and nurture her children. Every gesture kneading bread, arranging flowers, tending the small livestock becomes a visual meditation on care, endurance, and the daily acts through which human life persists, despite sorrow. The camera lingers, not for dramatic effect, but to highlight the intricacy and importance of these routines, emphasizing that survival is an achievement in itself after tragedy. Shakespeare's life in London remains filled with the ceaseless activity of the theatre, yet each achievement is shadowed by the memory of Hamnet. Paul Mescal's performance captures a man simultaneously absorbed in creation and haunted by absence, offering the audience insight into the dualities that define his existence. Letters from Stratford provide intermittent connection, carrying both updates and quiet reminders of the family he cannot fully inhabit. Scenes depicting rehearsals at the Globe Theatre reveal Shakespeare's insistence on emotional truth in performance, a reflection of his inner turbulence and a testament to the depth of his engagement with human experience. The film emphasizes that his artistry is inseparable from the personal sorrows he endures, highlighting the intricate relationship between life, loss, and creation. Judith and Susanna, growing in awareness and curiosity, navigate their environment with a combination of wonder and caution. Olivia Lyne's portrayal of Judith captures the delicate interplay of childhood innocence and emerging comprehension of mortality. Bodhi Ray Brethnick's Susanna demonstrates thoughtfulness and perceptiveness, her character serving as a quiet observer of both domestic routines and the emotional landscapes surrounding her. Their play, study, and interaction with the forest maintain a balance between normalcy and the omnipresent awareness of absence, creating moments of poignancy that resonate without sentimentality. The twins' relationship remains central, underscoring the ways in which family bonds sustain and shape individual responses to grief. Agnes' practices with herbal remedies acquire a reflective, almost ritualistic quality, linking practical care with deeper symbolic meaning. The forest, ever present, offers a space for meditation and connection, a place where the cycles of life, death, and renewal are visible in the smallest details of flora and fauna. Scenes in which Agnes tends to wounds, prepares tinctures, or simply walks among the trees are imbued with significance, illustrating the interdependence of environment and human experience. Cinematography emphasizes textures, colors, and the movement of light through leaves, reinforcing the emotional undertones of the narrative, while situating Agnes' experiences within a tangible sensory world. Shakespeare's relationship with his work continues to mirror his personal life. The rehearsal of Hamlet offers him a lens through which to process unresolved grief, allowing him to translate private sorrow into performative truth. His insistence on authenticity and emotional engagement with actors reveals both dedication and vulnerability. Mescal conveys moments of quiet reflection between rehearsals, showing how creative work and personal loss inform one another without resorting to dramatized exposition. The interplay between public performance and private mourning underscores the complex demands placed upon those who must inhabit both personal and professional spheres simultaneously. The extended family contributes to the evolving narrative, providing context and grounding for the characters' experiences. Bartholomew Hathaway offers both practical support and emotional guidance, navigating the responsibilities of kinship with measured concern. Emily Watson's Mary Shakespeare remains observant, her interactions providing insight into generational perspectives on duty, loss, and resilience. Their presence emphasizes the broader social and familial networks that shape individual experiences, illustrating the ways in which grief is negotiated communally as well as privately. These relationships are depicted with nuance, showing subtle influence and mutual dependence without overshadowing the central story. Agnes and Shakespeare continued to confront the challenges of partnership, balancing affection, memory, and the practical demands of household life. Quiet exchanges, shared meals, measured conversation, or moments of reflective silence revealed the depth of their connection and the complexities inherent in sustaining intimacy after loss. Their mutual recognition of limitations, combined with care and empathy, illustrates a form of endurance that is both realistic and profoundly moving. The symbolic presence of the hawk persists throughout these sequences, reinforcing the narrative's focus on memory and continuity. Agnes' attention to this motif carries an almost meditative quality, bridging the natural world, her own reflection, and the legacy of Hamnet's presence. The filmmakers use these sequences to connect visual storytelling with thematic resonance, creating a motif that underscores the continuity of life despite absence. The hawk becomes a silent witness to the characters' journeys, embodying freedom, remembrance, and the enduring impact of those who have passed. Interactions among the children reflect both growth and the absorption of familial memory. The narrative demonstrates how play, observation, and learning are intertwined with emotional development, particularly in the shadow of loss. Judith and Susanna's experiences are neither minimized nor exaggerated. Instead, they are portrayed as authentic reflections of childhood, shaped by grief and care. Their perspective adds depth to the depiction of family life, highlighting the quiet resilience and adaptability that emerge in response to tragedy. These portrayals reinforce the film's emphasis on observation, attentiveness, and the understated ways in which humans respond to loss. Agnes's domestic management, combined with her reflective engagement with the natural world, creates a continuous thread of connection and continuity. The careful attention to routine, the cultivation of herbs, and the observation of environmental cycles offer a visual and narrative representation of persistence. These moments illustrate the integration of grief into daily life, demonstrating that sorrow becomes woven into the fabric of existence without overwhelming the capacity for action, care, or reflection. The film conveys that endurance is a form of honor to those lost, transforming private mourning into a sustained commitment to life's ongoing demands. Shakespeare's artistic endeavors continue to intersect with personal history, offering a space for contemplation, creativity, and emotional expression. The rehearsal and staging of plays, including the profound performance of Hamlet, demonstrate the ways in which art channels memory and grief, providing both reflection and catharsis. Mescal's nuanced portrayal captures the duality of a man for whom public acclaim and private loss coexist, highlighting the interplay of ambition, responsibility, and emotional truth. The narrative situates these sequences as integral to the broader exploration of human experience, emphasizing the connection between life, creativity, and remembrance. The supporting ensemble enriches the emotional landscape, illustrating the multifaceted nature of family and community. Each character with a kin neighbor or acquaintance contributes to the ongoing negotiation of grief, support, and societal expectation. The film portrays these relationships with care, avoiding exaggeration while emphasizing authenticity and depth. Their presence reinforces the central themes of memory, continuity, and the subtle yet profound ways in which humans influence and support one another through adversity. As the narrative approaches its culminating sequences, the story underscores the enduring impact of Hamnet's life and death. The presence of memory, reflection, and artistry converges to create a tapestry of human resilience, love, and the capacity to transform grief into understanding. Agnes and Shakespeare, alongside their surviving children, embody the interweaving of personal experience and broader human truths, illustrating how loss, creativity, and connection shape the trajectory of life across time. The film concludes with the acknowledgement that while sorrow remains, life continues, informed by memory and sustained by care, artistry, and the ongoing rhythms of daily existence. The household in Stratford gradually becomes a space where the balance between grief and routine is both fragile and necessary. Agnes moves through her daily tasks with careful deliberation, the quiet rituals of cleaning, cooking, and tending the garden providing structure amid the lingering presence of loss. Jessie Buckley's performance conveys the complexity of her inner life, grief, resolve, and lingering hope interwoven with each measured action. Each movement reflects Agnes's determination to maintain continuity for her children, while simultaneously honoring the memory of Hamnet. Shakespeare's life in London continues to unfold alongside his professional commitments, yet the distance from Stratford underscores the tension between public achievement and private grief. Paul Mescal portrays the delicate balance of a man who carries sorrow, even as he inhabits the bustling energy of the theatre. Rehearsals for new plays are juxtaposed with moments of introspection, revealing how his personal experiences infiltrate his work. The Globe Theatre is depicted not merely as a stage, but as a vessel for reflection and transformation, where Shakespeare channels the emotional weight of family loss into narrative performance. His dedication to emotional authenticity and textual fidelity reflects both artistic ambition and the necessity of confronting internal turmoil. The children's development is depicted with sensitivity and depth. Judith and Susanna are increasingly perceptive, their lives informed by the absence of their brother and the careful attention of their mother. Olivia Lyons and Bodhi Ray Brethnack embody the quiet intelligence and adaptability of children navigating the complexities of family and mortality. Moments of play, study, and interaction are layered with awareness, allowing the audience to observe the impact of grief on perception, behavior, and relational dynamics. The twins' interactions reveal subtle forms of communication, shared understanding, and the resilience of human connection, emphasizing that emotional growth continues, even in the presence of sorrow. Agnes' mastery of herbal remedies continues to serve as a symbolic and practical element of the narrative. Each tincture, poultice, and infusion represents both care for her family and a meditation on the cycles of life. Scenes in the forest highlight the interdependence of nature and human experience, emphasizing observation, attentiveness, and reflection. The forest remains a place of both refuge and reflection, linking past, present, and the enduring presence of Hamnet. Shakespeare's engagement with his writing evolves into a method of processing grief and exploring human emotion. The rehearsal and staging of plays, particularly Hamlet, serve as conduits for reflection, empathy, and expression. Mescal's portrayal emphasizes the interplay of personal and artistic insight, revealing a man deeply affected by loss, yet committed to channeling that emotional energy into creation. Scenes in which he observes actors, revises text, and considers character motivation reflect the integration of experience, intellect, and emotional depth. The narrative demonstrates that artistic endeavor is inseparable from life's joys and sorrows, offering a meditation on how personal adversity shapes enduring cultural contributions. The ensemble cast continues to enrich the emotional landscape, providing a nuanced depiction of societal and familial dynamics. Bartholomew Hathaway offers support and guidance, balancing practical assistance with emotional sensitivity. Mary Shakespeare, portrayed by Emily Watson, provides generational perspective, her observations and interactions, illuminating family patterns, obligations, and the subtleties of emotional labor. The household functions as an interwoven network of care, constraint, and shared history, emphasizing that grief is communal as well as individual. The interplay of these characters highlights the complexity of relationships shaped by both affection and expectation, offering a layered understanding of human experience. Agnes and Shakespeare navigate the ongoing tension between intimacy and distance, balancing shared mourning with the demands of external responsibilities. Quiet moments such as arranging the family table, discussing schooling for the children, or simply sharing silent companionship reveal the depth of mutual understanding, even as unspoken sorrow persists. The recurring motif of the hawk continues to resonate, symbolizing memory, freedom, and the enduring presence of Hamnet, in both family and artistic consciousness. Agnes' attention to the hawk and its representation of continuity reinforces the narrative as meditation on mortality and the persistence of emotional influence. This motif is woven seamlessly into the visual and narrative fabric, appearing in both intimate domestic scenes and contemplative moments in the forest, reinforcing the thematic undercurrent of remembrance. The film uses the hawk to bridge interior emotion with external action, creating a visual and symbolic continuity that reinforces character motivation and thematic coherence. Interactions among the children illustrate both adaptation and the shaping of identity in response to familial loss. The twins' understanding of mortality, care, and memory manifests in play, study, and reflection, creating a portrait of childhood profoundly informed by experience, yet capable of growth. Their experiences are neither diminished nor sensationalized, providing an authentic lens through which to observe the impact of grief on cognitive, emotional, and relational development. The narrative emphasizes that children's perception of tragedy is subtle and multifaceted, capable of fostering resilience and insight when guided by attentive care. The film also emphasizes the interconnection between domestic life, nature, and societal pressures. Agnes' attention to the household and her forest sanctuary is juxtaposed with Shakespeare's theatrical pursuits, illustrating the negotiation of personal space, social expectation, and professional identity. The cinematography highlights contrasts in environment, lighting, and spatial composition, visually reinforcing the thematic tension between stability and movement, intimacy and public performance, loss and endurance. This approach allows the narrative to convey complex emotional truths without reliance on exposition, creating an immersive and contemplative viewing experience. As the narrative progresses, the audience witnesses the integration of grief into daily life, Agnes' careful management of household responsibilities, the children's navigation of emotional landscapes, and Shakespeare's artistic engagement combine to form a tapestry of continuity and adaptation. Loss remains ever present, yet the film demonstrates that human life persists through reflection, routine, and the pursuit of meaning. This thematic exploration is reinforced by careful pacing, attention to visual and auditory detail, and performances that honor the quiet dignity of lived experience. The family's efforts to maintain connection, care, and reflection signify the endurance of love, even in the shadow of tragedy. Shakespeare's engagement with his work and Agnes' stewardship of the household embody the coexistence of sorrow and purpose. Through its careful construction, Part 13 affirms that, while the permanence of absence cannot be undone, the acts of remembrance, care, and artistry create enduring traces of meaning that bridge past and present, loss and life. Agnes experiences a gradual shift in her emotional landscape as time moves forward. The sharp edge of grief softens into a quieter presence, still heavy but less consuming. Her days continue with steady intention, and her relationship with the natural world deepens as a source of understanding and calm. Each visit to the forest reflects her effort to remain connected to both memory and renewal. The plants, the soil, and the wind all become silent companions, offering space for contemplation and resilience. Her expression carries both sorrow and strength, revealing a woman who has endured profound loss, yet continues to shape her life with care and purpose. Shakespeare's work in London evolves with increasing emotional depth, reflecting the influence of personal experience on his creative process. His writing becomes more introspective, shaped by themes of memory, identity, and mortality. The theater environment provides him with both structure and reflection, allowing him to explore complex emotions through dialogue and character. His presence among actors and fellow writers reflects a balance between professional responsibility and inner vulnerability. Even in moments of public success, the weight of private loss remains visible, shaping his perspective and informing his artistic direction. The children continued their growth, shaped by both family history and personal development. Susanna displays increasing independence, demonstrating maturity through her thoughtful observations and actions. Judith grows in confidence, her emotional awareness becoming more refined as she navigates daily life within the household. Their relationship with Agnes remains central, grounded in mutual trust and shared experience. The absence of their brother remains part of their understanding of the world, shaping their sense of connection and care. Their resilience reflects both emotional adaptation and the steady presence of their mother's guidance. The household atmosphere becomes one of quiet continuity. Daily routines provide structure, and each task carries symbolic meaning. Preparing meals, organizing clothing, and maintaining the home become expressions of love, memory, and endurance. These actions reflect Agnes's commitment to preserving stability for her children, even while carrying personal sorrow. The household becomes a space of shared history and ongoing connection, where grief exists alongside moments of warmth, learning, and reflection. The environment itself reflects the emotional balance of the family, shaped by care rather than despair. Agnes's knowledge of herbal remedies remains a defining element of her character. Her connection to nature is portrayed not as mystical, but as rooted in observation, experience, and respect for the natural world. Each preparation serves both practical and symbolic functions, reflecting her role as healer, mother, and caretaker. The careful gathering of plants, the measured preparation of mixtures, and the thoughtful application of remedies emphasize her sense of responsibility and attentiveness. These moments reinforce her connection to life's cycles and her understanding of both fragility and endurance. Shakespeare's reflections increasingly shape his creative output. His engagement with narrative becomes a form of exploration, allowing him to examine themes of loss, remembrance, and human complexity. Scenes depicting his writing process highlight his commitment to emotional authenticity and intellectual depth. His work becomes a bridge between personal experience and public expression, allowing private grief to find form through language and performance. The theater remains a space where emotion and imagination intersect, offering him both distance and connection to his own experiences. The relationship between Agnes and Shakespeare continues to evolve through subtle interaction, rather than direct confrontation. Their shared history and mutual understanding create a foundation of quiet support. Moments of shared silence, simple conversation, and domestic cooperation reveal the depth of their bond. They do not rely on explicit expressions of emotion, yet their connection is evident through gesture, presence, and mutual respect. This understated portrayal emphasizes the realism of long-term partnership shaped by shared experience, responsibility, and emotional endurance. Hamnet's absence is not framed as a distant event, but as an ongoing influence that shapes emotional perception and behavior. His presence is felt through small details, shared memories, and moments of reflection. This approach avoids dramatic emphasis, instead portraying grief as a continuous process integrated into everyday existence. The story honors the complexity of remembrance, showing that memory does not fade but transforms, becoming part of personal identity and emotional understanding. The surrounding community continues to play a role in the family's experience. Neighbors, relatives, and acquaintances contribute to the social landscape, offering both support and structure. These interactions reflect societal norms, expectations, and relationships, adding depth to the family's narrative context. The community environment reinforces the sense of belonging and continuity. Even as individual lives are shaped by personal loss, the film presents these social dynamics with subtlety, emphasizing shared humanity rather than dramatic conflict. Visually, the film maintains a contemplative tone through natural lighting, restrained color palettes, and measured pacing. The camera often lingers on details such as hands, expressions, and environmental textures, reinforcing emotional nuance without reliance on dialogue. These visual choices create a sense of intimacy and realism, allowing the audience to engage with the characters' internal experiences through observation rather than exposition. The aesthetic approach supports the narrative's emphasis on reflection, continuity, and emotional authenticity. The children's development continues to reflect emotional resilience and intellectual curiosity. Their engagement with learning, play, and family life illustrates growth shaped by both care and experience. They demonstrate an evolving understanding of the world, informed by observation, conversation, and reflection. Their relationship with each other remains central, grounded in shared experience and emotional connection. This portrayal emphasizes the capacity of children to adapt and grow, even within environments shaped by loss and emotional complexity. Agnes' inner life remains rich and layered, shaped by reflection, memory, and responsibility. Her strength does not manifest through overt action, but through consistency, attentiveness, and emotional presence. She remains deeply connected to her children, her home, and her environment, embodying a form of resilience grounded in care rather than resistance. Her journey reflects the narrative's broader themes of endurance, memory, and the integration of grief into life's ongoing rhythm. Shakespeare's creative path continues to reflect both ambition and introspection. His work remains influenced by emotional experience, intellectual curiosity, and historical context. The film presents his artistic development not as a sudden transformation but as a gradual evolution, shaped by reflection, observation, and emotional depth. His relationship with his work reflects the narrative's emphasis on continuity rather than resolution, illustrating that creativity often emerges from sustained engagement with life's complexities. The characters do not seek to resolve grief, but to live alongside it with awareness and care. This approach reflects a mature understanding of loss, one that acknowledges emotional permanence while affirming the capacity for growth, connection, and meaning. The film honors this perspective through restrained storytelling, emotional realism, and thematic coherence. The emotional tone of the story remains reflective, intimate, and grounded in lived experience. The characters' journeys illustrate that grief does not diminish the capacity for love, creativity, or connection. Instead, it reshapes perception, deepens understanding, and influences the ways individuals engage with the world. This thematic emphasis reinforces the film's exploration of memory, identity, and endurance, offering a thoughtful and emotionally resonant portrayal of human experience. Each element contributes to a unified portrayal of life, shaped by both loss and continuity. The characters' experiences reflect universal themes of family, memory, and emotional resilience, grounded in historical context, yet resonant across time. The film's careful construction allows these themes to unfold organically, without reliance on overt symbolism or dramatic resolution. The characters' efforts to maintain balance, nurture relationships, and engage with the world reflect a deep commitment to meaning and continuity. The narrative honors this commitment through subtle storytelling, emotional authenticity, and thoughtful pacing, creating a powerful meditation on grief, memory, and human endurance. Agnes continues her journey with a deeper sense of emotional steadiness. The grief that once felt overwhelming now exists as a quiet presence within her, integrated into her daily life rather than dominating it. She approaches each day with intention, tending to her household, her children, and the land with care and patience. Her connection to nature remains a source of reflection and grounding, offering moments of stillness that allow her to honor memory without being consumed by it. Her strength emerges through consistency, compassion, and emotional awareness, reflecting a resilience rooted in understanding rather than resistance. The relationship between Agnes and Shakespeare reaches a stage of mutual clarity. Their shared history and experiences shape a partnership based on respect, emotional honesty, and acceptance. They no longer seek explanations for the past, but focus on understanding each other in the present. Their interactions reflect quiet support rather than dramatic expression, illustrating a bond strengthened by time and shared endurance. Their communication becomes less about resolution and more about presence, emphasizing the value of companionship during emotional complexity. Shakespeare's creative work continues to reflect the influence of personal experience. His writing grows more contemplative, exploring themes of identity, loss, and the human condition with emotional depth. The theater remains a space of exploration and reflection, allowing him to express complex emotions through narrative and performance. His professional success is not presented as an escape from grief, but as an extension of emotional processing. His work becomes a means of honoring experience, memory, and understanding through artistic expression. The children continue to grow with emotional awareness and independence. Susanna demonstrates increasing maturity through thoughtful behavior and responsible Judith's development reflects emotional sensitivity and intellectual curiosity, shaped by her experiences within the family. Their relationship with each other remains strong, grounded in mutual understanding and shared history. Their connection to Agnes remains central, providing stability, guidance, and emotional support. The family dynamic reflects resilience, built through care, communication, and shared experience. The household environment reflects continuity and emotional balance. Daily routines provide structure and comfort, offering a sense of normalcy, shaped by intention rather than habit alone. Each task, whether related to care, preparation, or organization, becomes an expression of connection and responsibility. The household becomes a space of emotional safety, where memory and growth coexist without conflict. Agnes' connection to herbal knowledge remains a defining aspect of her identity. Her understanding of the natural world reflects observation, experience, and respect rather than mysticism. Each preparation carries meaning, representing both practical care and emotional intention. These moments emphasize her role as healer, mother, and caretaker, reinforcing the narrative's emphasis on quiet strength and attentiveness. Her actions reflect an understanding of life's fragility and resilience, shaping her approach to both care and reflection. Shakespeare's emotional development continues through introspection and creative exploration. His reflections shape his understanding of both himself and his work. He engages with narrative not only as a profession, but as a means of emotional expression and intellectual inquiry. His presence within the theater environment reflects both professional dedication and personal vulnerability, illustrating the complex relationship between creativity and experience. His work remains deeply connected to his emotional life, reflecting the narrative's emphasis on authenticity and depth. The relationship between Agnes and the children continues to evolve through shared experience and mutual trust. Their interactions reflect emotional awareness, respect, and connection. Agnes' guidance is characterized by patience, understanding, and attentiveness, allowing her children to develop independence while maintaining emotional security. Their shared moments reflect the family's ability to navigate complexity through communication, care, and presence. These interactions emphasize the narrative's focus on emotional resilience and relational depth. Memory remains a central theme, shaping both emotional perception and personal identity. Hamnet's absence continues to influence the family's understanding of life, love, and loss. His presence exists within memory, rather than physical reality, shaping emotional awareness without overwhelming it. This portrayal reflects a mature understanding of grief as an enduring but evolving experience. The narrative honors this complexity by integrating memory into daily life, rather than isolating it as a singular emotional event. Natural lighting, restrained color palettes, and measured pacing reinforce the narrative's contemplative quality. The camera's focus on detail, expression, and movement allows emotional nuance to emerge without reliance on dialogue. These visual choices support the narrative's emphasis on reflection, continuity, and emotional authenticity. The aesthetic approach reinforces the emotional depth of the story, while maintaining realism and subtlety. The children's growth continues to reflect emotional resilience and intellectual engagement. Their experiences shape their understanding of the world, informed by observation, conversation, and reflection. Their interactions reflect curiosity, empathy, and emotional awareness, illustrating the impact of family environment on development. Their relationship with each other remains grounded in shared experience and emotional connection, emphasizing the narrative's focus on familial bonds and continuity. Agnes's inner life remains rich and reflective, shaped by memory, responsibility, and emotional awareness. Her strength is expressed through consistency, care, and emotional presence rather than dramatic action. She remains deeply connected to her family, her home, and her environment, embodying a form of resilience grounded in understanding and compassion. Her journey reflects the narrative's broader themes of endurance, memory, and emotional integration. Shakespeare's creative journey continues to reflect both ambition and introspection. His work remains shaped by emotional experience, intellectual curiosity, and historical context. The narrative presents his artistic development as a gradual process influenced by reflection, observation, and emotional depth. His relationship with his work reflects the story's emphasis on continuity rather than resolution, illustrating that creativity often emerges from sustained engagement with life's complexities. The characters do not seek closure in a traditional sense, but embrace an understanding of life shaped by both loss and resilience. This perspective reflects a mature approach to grief, one that acknowledges emotional permanence while affirming the capacity for growth, connection, and meaning. The narrative honors this approach through restrained storytelling, emotional realism, and thematic coherence. The emotional tone remains reflective, intimate, and grounded in lived experience. The characters' journeys illustrate that grief does not diminish the capacity for love, creativity, or connection. Instead, it reshapes perception, deepens understanding, and influences engagement with the world. This thematic emphasis reinforces the story's exploration of memory, identity, and endurance, offering a thoughtful and emotionally resonant portrayal of human experience. Each element contributes to a unified portrayal of life shaped by both loss and continuity. The characters' experiences reflect universal themes of family, memory, and emotional resilience, grounded in historical context yet resonant across time. The story's careful construction allows these themes to unfold organically, without reliance on overt symbolism or dramatic resolution. Life continues through care, creativity, and connection. The characters' efforts to maintain balance, nurture relationships, and engage with the world reflect a deep commitment to meaning and continuity. The narrative honors this commitment through subtle storytelling, emotional authenticity, and thoughtful pacing, offering a powerful meditation on grief, memory, and human endurance. The emotional current of Hamnet continues to deepen, drawing the audience into an even more reflective and intimate exploration of grief, memory, and transformation. The atmosphere remains heavy, but not hopeless, shaped by the delicate balance between sorrow and the fragile persistence of life. The camera lingers on ordinary moments: Agnes preparing meals, William writing in solitude, the children moving through the home, turning these simple acts into emotional touchstones that reveal how grief reshapes even the most mundane routines. Agnes's inner world becomes increasingly complex, her grief no longer expressed through tears alone, but through silence, withdrawal, and moments of spiritual searching. Jessie Buckley's performance remains quietly powerful, communicating layers of emotion with minimal dialogue. Her connection to the natural world grows stronger, not as an escape, but as a form of communion with memory. The forest, once a place of healing and wonder, now becomes a space where she confronts absence, loss, and the lingering presence of Hamnet. These scenes do not offer comfort in the traditional sense, but they provide a sense of emotional honesty that resonates deeply, portraying grief not as a phase to be overcome, but as a companion that reshapes identity. William's emotional journey also takes on a more introspective tone. His return to London and continued work in the theatre no longer feel like ambition alone, but like a necessity, a way to give form to what cannot be spoken. Paul Mescal portrays this with restrained vulnerability, presenting a man who appears composed on the surface, yet is internally fractured. His writing becomes more focused, more urgent, as though each word carries the weight of remembrance. The tension between his public persona as a playwright and his private sorrow as a father grows more pronounced, creating a quiet emotional conflict that underpins much of this section of the film. The scenes in London are less vibrant than earlier ones, infused instead with a subdued intensity that reflects William's altered emotional state. The relationship between Agnes and William continues to evolve in subtle, emotionally complex ways. Their grief binds them together, yet also creates distance, as each struggles to process loss in their own way. Conversations between them become sparse, weighted with unspoken emotion, and the film allows these silences to speak louder than dialogue ever could. Their shared moments are often quiet and restrained, marked by glances, gestures, and brief exchanges that hint at both love and emotional disconnection. This portrayal avoids melodrama, choosing instead to explore the realism of grief within a marriage, where two people can love deeply, yet feel profoundly alone at the same time. The emotional honesty of these interactions contributes to the film's authenticity, offering a nuanced depiction of how tragedy reshapes relationships. The presence of Judith continues to serve as both a reminder of loss and a symbol of endurance. Her survival, contrasted with Hamnet's absence, adds emotional complexity to the household. Her interactions with Agnes are particularly tender, filled with quiet affection and unspoken sorrow. These moments emphasize the generational impact of grief, illustrating how loss reverberates through family dynamics, shaping not only parents, but children as well. The filmmakers treat Judith's emotional world with sensitivity, ensuring that her experience remains integral to the narrative rather than peripheral. Visually, the film continues to rely on its naturalistic aesthetic to convey emotional depth. The recurring imagery of light and shadow, of interior and exterior spaces, reinforces the characters' internal states. The home in Stratford feels heavier, more enclosed, while the outdoor landscapes offer brief moments of openness, though never true escape. The symbolic elements introduced earlier, such as the hawk and the forest cave, take on deeper meaning, functioning as visual metaphors for memory, loss, and continuity. These motifs are woven into the narrative without overt explanation, allowing the audience to interpret their significance organically. The sound design remains understated yet powerful, using silence as a narrative tool as effectively as music. When music does appear, it does so sparingly, reinforcing the emotional weight of key moments without overwhelming the narrative. This restraint reflects the film's overall tone, which favors quiet intensity over dramatic excess. The result is an immersive sensory experience that deepens the audience's emotional connection to the story. Agnes begins to redefine her sense of self, no longer solely as a mother, but as a woman navigating a world altered by loss. William's creative work similarly evolves, becoming both a tribute to Hamnet and a means of processing his own emotional pain. These parallel journeys highlight the film's central exploration of how human beings adapt to tragedy, not by erasing loss, but by integrating it into their lives. The film avoids offering closure in a conventional sense, instead presenting grief as an ongoing process, one that transforms rather than resolves. The narrative does not rush toward resolution, choosing instead to linger in the emotional aftermath of loss. Ultimately, the film reinforces Hamnet's identity as a deeply human story, one that transcends historical context, to explore universal experiences of love, loss, and remembrance. The characters' emotional journeys are portrayed with compassion and nuance, inviting the audience not merely to observe, but to feel alongside them. The film's quiet power lies in its ability to transform personal tragedy into a meditation on memory, identity, and the enduring connections between the living and the dead. As the story continues to unfold, the emotional foundation laid here becomes essential, shaping the narrative's progression and deepening its impact. The narrative continues with an even deeper focus on how grief reshapes not only memory, but also identity, purpose, and connection. The emotional landscape of the film grows more reflective, as Agnes and William begin to exist within a world that feels permanently altered by Hamnet's absence. The sorrow no longer arrives in waves of visible anguish. Instead, it has become embedded in their daily routines, shaping their thoughts, actions, and silences. Each scene unfolds with restraint, allowing the audience to sense the emotional weight beneath even the most ordinary interactions. Agnes's journey continues to move inward, marked by moments of stillness that speak louder than words. Her connection to the natural world becomes increasingly symbolic, representing both remembrance and endurance. The forest, once a place of wonder and healing, now serves as a space where she confronts the reality of loss and the persistence of memory. Jessie Buckley's performance remains profoundly restrained, conveying sorrow, longing, and quiet strength through subtle expressions and physical presence rather than overt emotion. Agnes's grief does not define her entirely, but it reshapes her understanding of herself, her family, and the world around her. The film portrays this transformation with sensitivity, avoiding simplistic portrayals of recovery and instead presenting grief as an evolving emotional state that alters one's relationship with life itself. William's emotional trajectory continues to unfold through his creative work, which increasingly reflects the depth of his personal loss. His writing becomes more focused, more introspective, as though each word is an attempt to give form to what cannot be fully articulated. Mescal's portrayal captures the quiet desperation of a man who seeks meaning through creation while carrying the weight of sorrow in silence. His time in London feels emotionally distant, not because he is physically removed from his family, but because he is emotionally isolated within his grief. The contrast between the public world of theatre and the private world of mourning grows more pronounced, highlighting the tension between performance and authenticity, expression and repression. The relationship between Agnes and William continues to evolve with emotional complexity. Their shared loss connects them deeply, yet it also creates an emotional distance that neither fully understands how to bridge. Conversations remain sparse, marked by pauses, unfinished sentences, and gestures that communicate both affection and frustration. Love remains present, but it exists alongside confusion, sorrow, and emotional isolation, creating a layered and honest depiction of marriage under the strain of tragedy. Judith's presence remains emotionally significant, serving as both a living connection to Hamnet and a reminder of what has been lost. Judith's emotional world is not overshadowed by her brother's absence. Instead, it is shaped by it, reflecting how loss influences identity and development even in childhood. These moments add emotional depth to the narrative, reinforcing the film's exploration of how grief affects not only individuals, but entire families across generations. The use of natural light, shadow, and open space conveys a sense of emotional vastness, while interior scenes emphasize containment, introspection, and emotional heaviness. The symbolic imagery introduced earlier, particularly the hawk and the forest cave, continues to resonate, functioning as metaphors for memory, transition, and the continuity of life beyond loss. When music emerges, it does so gently, enhancing rather than dominating the emotional atmosphere. Grief is no longer portrayed solely as suffering, but also as a catalyst for change, reflection, and emotional growth. Agnes begins to redefine her sense of self, not by forgetting Hamnet, but by integrating his memory into her ongoing life. William's creative work similarly evolves, becoming both a tribute to his son and a means of personal reckoning. These parallel journeys highlight the film's central message that loss reshapes identity, but does not erase the possibility of meaning, connection, or even quiet hope. The emotional pacing remains deliberate, allowing each moment to breathe. The film resists conventional narrative resolution, choosing instead to explore the ongoing nature of grief. This approach may challenge viewers accustomed to more definitive emotional arcs, but it aligns with the film's thematic commitment to emotional authenticity. The story does not seek to resolve grief, but to honor it, portraying it as a lasting presence that coexists with love, memory, and life itself. The characters' emotional journeys are portrayed with compassion, nuance, and restraint, inviting the audience to reflect on their own experiences of grief and resilience. The film continues to transform personal tragedy into a universal exploration of love, memory, and the enduring bonds between those who remain and those who are gone. The final moments of the story unfolds with a quiet sense of acceptance, not because the pain has disappeared, but because the characters have learned how to live alongside it. Agnes and William exist within a world permanently shaped by Hamnet's absence. Yet that absence no longer feels like a void. It is transformed into a presence that informs their choices, their memories, and their understanding of love. The emotional tone is no longer heavy with despair, but softened by reflection, awareness, and emotional endurance. The film does not suggest healing as a destination, but as an ongoing process of learning how to carry loss without being consumed by it. Agnes's emotional journey reaches a moment of internal clarity. Her sorrow remains, but it no longer isolates her from the world around her. The forest, once a place of escape, now becomes a space of grounding and connection. Her interactions with nature feel less like attempts to retreat from reality and more like acts of remembrance and continuity. Jessie Buckley's performance conveys a woman who has not moved beyond grief, but has grown around it, allowing sorrow to coexist with tenderness, presence, and quiet strength. Agnes's emotional expression remains restrained, yet there is a visible shift toward emotional openness, suggesting that grief has reshaped her rather than destroyed her. William's creative journey reaches a point of emotional reconciliation. Mescal portrays a man who has learned to sit with his grief instead of resisting it, allowing his creative work to reflect emotional truth rather than emotional escape. His presence feels more grounded, less fragmented, as though he has accepted both his role as a father and as an artist, without allowing one to eclipse the other. This balance represents an emotional resolution, not because sorrow has ended, but because purpose has been restored. The relationship between Agnes and William evolves into a quieter, more honest connection. Their bond is no longer defined by shared pain alone, but by shared understanding. Conversations remain minimal, yet there is a sense of emotional clarity between them, as though words are no longer required to communicate what they feel. Judith's presence continues to reflect the future shaped by the past. Her emotional growth symbolizes continuity, survival, and the persistence of life beyond tragedy. The film portrays her, not as a replacement for Hamnet, but as her own individual presence, carrying both memory and potential. Her interactions with Agnes and William reflect a family learning to live with remembrance rather than silence. These moments reinforce the film's message that loss does not negate life, but transforms how life is experienced and understood. The visual language reaches its most reflective point, emphasizing light, openness, and natural movement. The forest, the home, and the surrounding landscape are depicted with a gentler tone, suggesting emotional acceptance rather than emotional heaviness. Symbolic imagery introduced earlier, particularly the hawk and the forest cave, returned with quiet resonance, no longer representing escape or longing, but remembrance and continuity. The absence of dramatic musical swells ensures that the emotional impact remains authentic, grounded in performance and storytelling, rather than emotional manipulation. The narrative gradually moves toward a sense of emotional stillness, rather than narrative closure. There is no dramatic turning point or explicit declaration of healing. Instead, the film embraces emotional continuity, suggesting that grief becomes part of one's emotional landscape, rather than something to overcome. This approach aligns with the film's overall commitment to realism, nuance, and emotional honesty. The story does not end grief. It reframes it as memory, love, and connection that persists beyond absence. The final scenes reinforce the emotional themes of remembrance and transformation. Agnes's internal world feels more open, William's creative voice feels more grounded, and their shared life feels more emotionally stable. Not because sorrow has disappeared, but because it has found a place within them. The film's closing moments avoid sentimentality, instead offering quiet acknowledgement of love, loss, and endurance. Ultimately, the film concludes, as it began, with intimacy, restraint, and emotional depth. It transforms personal tragedy into a universal meditation on grief, memory, and the human capacity to endure loss, while continuing to love. The story leaves the audience with a sense of emotional clarity, rather than emotional completion, reinforcing the idea that grief does not end, but evolves, shaping who we are and how we live.